Welcome back to lesson number 3. This is God's master plan and our place in it. This is the biggie. This is the watershed, the pivotal point. I don't know. This is the lesson that we really need to get down. The notes are extremely important for you to download and go through. What I'm going to give you is a massive amount of information in just a few short minutes. To begin with, if you have pen and paper, I want you to write down these 3 words: creation, rebellion, and restoration. That is creation, rebellion, and restoration. Those 3 points basically cover God's plan. To explain, Colossians 1:19 and 20 tells us that God is going to reconcile all things. That's God's big picture plan of fixing things. That refers to the cartoon at the beginning of the lesson. So how did it become unreconciled? Did God create it in a mess, unreconciled to Him? No. God is a perfect being in whom there is no darkness found whatsoever, and He created everything perfect. He created the entire universe. He also created a group of beings called angels, and from Psalms and Job, we know that those angels were created to make sure His creation, the rest of His creation, continued to run according to His plan and according to His laws and principles. A perfect example of this is humanity. God created humanity and placed us on this earth and placed us here to oversee the world. He gave us dominion over the plants and the animals, and we were to see that it kept running according to God's plan. So in this original creation where God created the universe and the angels to rule over it, what happened? Well, the Bible tells us that Satan rebelled against God and His rulership, and in his rebellion, he took 1/3 of the angels. 1/3 of the angels went with him. I would like to point out that that was in eternity past. In eternity past, everything was running just fine. But when Satan rebelled, it changed everything. It took 1/3 of God's workforce and just completely changed His workforce. Then within time, God created humanity, and Satan, guess what? Satan led us away, and we rebelled against God, and that is within time. It's important to know that when Satan rebelled, he did not rebel against just this earth and just humanity. He wanted to rule just like God. He wanted to rule all creation. He didn't want to rule this tiny, tiny, tiny speck of dust that we call earth and these insignificant creatures called humans. No, Satan wanted to rule everything. Now, that takes care of eternity past and all of time. Today, in present time, Satan is referred to in the Bible as the God of this world. He is still ruling. Now, back to those 3 points: creation, rebellion, restoration. God's master plan is to restore His rulership over all creation, not just this tiny, tiny, tiny speck of dust we call earth and all humanity. It's to rule over His entire creation. Everything from angels to dirt. That is God's master plan. So, biblical restoration or biblical reconciliation, I misspoke there, biblical reconciliation is returning everything back to God under His supreme rulership. Satan will no longer have a position of rulership anywhere in God's creation. So that is biblical reconciliation. So when in Colossians chapter 1, verses 19 and 20, it says that he's going to reconcile everything on earth and in heaven. He's going to reconcile back to himself. That's what it's talking about. He's going to bring everything back to his wonderful, glorious, loving relationship and rulership. 3 points in this lesson. God's plan is to reconcile everything. Or I should say, let's go back to make it even more simple. God's plan covers everything, all the pieces in the puzzle, everything, not just my life, not just your life, not just the people on this earth, not just this earth, not just the entire universe, but also all of the angels, everything. Everything. So God is going to reconcile that. He's going to somehow take that away from Satan. That's point number 2. Satan's no longer going to rule. God's going to rule. And point number 3, God will reestablish his rulership over his entire creation. That is God's master plan. And yes, you and I have a place, have a position, have a responsibility in that master plan. And that's going to start off with lesson number 4. But there are the first 3 lessons which cover the fact that God has a plan, okay? And that plan is to reconcile all creation back to himself. But we have to look at that plan through our spiritual lens, a spiritual perspective. That's lesson number 2. So with a spiritual perspective, we can see the big picture. We can see all the pieces in the puzzle, not just my tiny little life or yours, but everything. Okay, that's lesson number 4. I kind of had a tendency to ramble there, but fortunately, no soapboxes. And and now I am starting to ramble. Okay, lesson number 4. Look forward to seeing you in lesson number 4. Be blessed.